Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and as you can see, I've got the tie on, we've got the top hollow music playing in the background. You all know what that means. It's time for some more Pokemon Sleep news, and my goodness, give me one moment here. Oh, there we go. Okay, Pokemon Sleep news! I probably didn't prep the inputs correctly when I was prepping this, but either way. Halloween! Halloween's just around the corner. Now, we had some minor event news prior to this point, giving us some minor details about how Halloween would look, but overall I deemed it... They basically said there was going to be another news announcement later on, so I wasn't, like, too hasty to go and make a video about it, because I felt like there was going to be more news eventually, and sure enough, there was, and my goodness, we got some crazy stuff going on. Now, what is going on? Well, one thing I'm sure you already are noticing, that there are some Pokemon in this image that aren't currently in the game. We will get back around to that. But as for right now, what does the event look like? Well, there is a new Pokemon, Pumpkaboo and Gourgeist, which we will, like I said, we will get back around to that. And then there's also adding a Halloween Hat Eevee. Now, we could speculate a little bit as to what Halloween Hat Eevee looks like. Actually, do we need to speculate? I wonder. It might be in the Pokedex. Let me just check here real quick. It might actually be out. Let's see. No, there's no data on Halloween Hat Eevee yet. So, this would all be speculative. I just want to fact check myself there. Anything about Halloween Hat Eevee would just be speculative right now. We can kind of assume, when it came to Halloween Hat Pikachu, it was a berry specialist like regular Pikachu is. So, potentially it could be a skill specialist, just like regular Eevee is. So far, it's only been with the Christmas varieties, the Santa Hat ones, where they change their specialty. But who knows? Old trends could just be a one-time thing. They may be changing that trend. Maybe we'll get an ingredient specialist Eevee. Who knows? Only time will tell on that. But either way, new thing and then new thing with Pumpkaboo. Now, there's also limited time missions with handy candies and linking cords, something you don't get enough of in this game for sure, for evolving Pumpkaboo. Notably, you get double the amount of times of candies from sleep research, and a couple of the nights, particularly on Halloween night, and on the last day of the event, it's actually multiplied by 3 instead of just by 2. So you're really going to want to be optimizing your strength during this event, because other things like Dream Shard Magnet aren't necessarily going to be getting you more candies. Candies is the one way that, as of right now, there are no other methods to get or farm other than through strength. So, if you want to optimize your candy output and make the most out of what this event has to offer, focusing down strength specifically during this event is going to be the best play, and ignoring, like, Dream Shard Magnet in general is going to help you with getting those candies. But they're adding a new ingredient. Now, this is unprecedented. Plump Pumpkin. Now, there's a couple of interesting things to do with this pumpkin. Most notably, the strength. 250 ingredient base strength is absurd. So absurd that, like, that is just beyond anything that's been in reliable meals thus far. We do have tails, which are kind of a gimmick, but there's no real tail producer in the game to produce a good amount of tails. They've been since day one a gimmick ingredient, and they've stuck to that status of, like, just filler for when you have an excess of them. But pumpkins are interesting because it seems we can actually make certain meals, some really powerful meals, and somewhat reliably with them with this new Pokemon they're adding in Gourgeist. Now, what exactly are they doing with Gourgeist? Well, it's an ingredient specialist. We already know this. It's dosing type, and it does produce pumpkins. Now, how do we know this based off of this information? Well, that's the trick question. It's not based off this information. This says that it's appearing beginning October 27th, 2025 at 4 a.m., but that's just the time that the incense works. People are already reporting it. People have already reported seeing it, and what's even more interesting is that there are people that are reporting seeing it outside of the islands that it's set to appear at, based off this information. Already, like literally today. So, we don't know where it actually can appear, if there are any limitations to that. It could just be anywhere. It could just be the islands that, well, I can verify there's one person in our Discord that said they saw it and caught one at Lapis. So, thank you to Oyster Shore Smouse, that's his 2 names, for reporting that, because that's an interesting finding. But it seems that this information here is just wrong. It's already out. People have already caught it, which means that we already have the information about how Pumpkaboo looks and how many pumpkins it can produce. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of different data reporting down here. Now, interestingly, the Rain on X team haven't actually imported the image for the Pokemon yet. That is how early I am reporting on this. But they have all the data for it on the website. And notably, there are 4 different varieties of it. If you look in the news here, Pumpkaboo and Gourgeist each have 4 different forms. Each form has different helping stats. Larger forms have a larger carrying limit, while smaller forms help more quickly. This translates to the smaller ones have a faster frequency, the larger ones have a bigger inventory. Now, generally speaking, frequency is the overall best thing to have in this game. Every single Pokemon in the game does enjoy it. But ingredient specialists, especially if you're going to leave them on the team overnight, actually do benefit quite a bit from inventory. But if you're collecting them throughout the day and not letting them run overnight, then inventory makes no impact. So if you're a very active player, then I'd suggest first and foremost primarily just catching the smallest ones. If you aren't the type of person to leave your ingredient specialists on overnight. But if you leave your ingredient specialists on overnight, it may actually be beneficial more to collect the hunt for the bigger ones. And I made a couple of production comparisons in here. Of the largest to the smallest, and generally speaking, the small variety performs worse than the large variety when you account for a full day's worth. Now, this includes my sleep session. If I was to change this to 12 o'clock a.m., which is when I have mine set to go to bed, then it ignores my entire sleep session, and then the roles reverse. That's because of that effect. Now, I've kind of gauged this across not using Good Camp Ticket and using Good Camp Ticket, because Good Camp Ticket has an inventory impact as well, just to see how the impacts make a difference. And I want to include an account for having a potential sub-skill for inventory or having sleep hours with it. And actually, if you have the inventory up L, then the maximum here, so I just gauged the minimum potential pumpkin output versus the maximum based off of my settings, to then see what the percentage increase is between the worst and the best potential Gourgeist, based off of size and size alone, not worrying about sub-skills, aside from where the inventory is taken into account. And generally speaking, if we look at just the day, it's about 9.65 to 68%, so roughly 9.7%. The smaller one is better than the bit jumbo one. But then, compared to the rest, it's like less than 8%, or about 8%, 8.5% at like the worst potential moment. So, like, for comparison, Helping Speed S is about a 7% productivity modifier. So, no matter which one you have, the productivity impact by having a different size Gourgeist is going to be about the same, or maybe even less impactful than just having a Help Speed S. And if you have an additional sub-skill of it, like Ingredient Finder S, Helping Speed M, Ingredient Finding M, or the right nature, any sort of a nature modifier, Speed of Help Up, anything like that, that's going to make a bigger impact than the difference between the different sizes of Gourgeist. The concept of sub-skills matter more than species very much so still applies here. So I'd say if you're hunting for a pumpkin farmer, hunt for Gourgeist in general. They're all going to be able to do that role. It just matters what sub-skills you get first and foremost, and then the size of it. It may be more beneficial for certain playstyles to have a smaller one. It may be more beneficial to have a larger one, but the difference is going to be relatively minimal. But now, why is it important to go for these pumpkins? Well, I already stated that it has an absurd base strength value, and they're actually using them in some of the largest meals. Well, what does this equate out to? Well, you'll notice down here I have 2 numbers and then a percentage. This first number is the strength produced by the base strength from a level 65 Clodsire Eclairs, the currently strongest meal in the game. Now, the new strongest meal in the game that uses these pumpkins, the scary face pumpkin pancakes, or whatever they're called, is 81,342. That is a 16.61% increase to overall strength from your meals. Now, that's very important for very cooking-focused players, because that equates to a 16% increase to cooking overall for people who are reliably making this meal. And you're only using one more ingredient per meal when making this meal. Additionally, pumpkins will be a very, very easy meal ingredient to stockpile, as they only take 10 to 18 for it. So if you have a worse off Gourgeist, it'll be pretty easy to stockpile the additional, because you won't be lacking, say, 20 like you would for something like apples. You'll only be lacking like a couple, because they only take a maximum of 30 per day for the roleplay Pumpkaboo stew, or a maximum of whatever 18 times 3. That'd be 54. 54 pumpkins for the scary face pumpkin pancakes. It's going to be a lot easier to work with these things because they're a higher strength density than what a lot of other ingredients are. Now, I don't think the roleplay Pumpkaboo stew is going to make that big of an impact on anything, because if we look at it compared to other curries, it isn't even... I mean, it is top 3. However, it's top 3 with much fewer ingredients because of some of those ingredients being very point dense, especially with there being mushrooms in there as well. A lot of mushrooms. However, the top 2 meals might make it kind of difficult to justify, but there is a lot of extra room in the pot for filler, so there is some flexibility that this is going to provide that other ones do, but I don't think it's going to be a super meta meal, especially since it's going to be difficult to get a good pumpkin farmer with Gourgeist, because it is just the only option in the game right now. Now, if we then flip over to the dessert wheelhouse, though, like I said, huge step up going from Claude's Eclairs to Scary Face Pancakes. So this is definitely the one that a lot of ingredient-focused players are going to be targeting. However, I'm putting an asterisk on this, and this is where we get a little bit speculative, but only time will tell where this goes. Now, I would suggest hunt a pumpkin farmer. They seem they're going to be very good. It's a good idea to have almost every ingredient covered if you can. However, even though these scary face pumpkins, or these scary face pancakes, seem to be very, very good now and like the new meta, I think this meta is going to be a short-lived meta, because we already know that the Amber Canyon is releasing shortly after, and typically speaking, new ingredients coincide with the release of new islands. This could be the new island ingredient. It very well could be. But I think, and here's my speculation, I think that pumpkins are more meant to be another gimmick. Similarly to Tails. Tails have very limited distribution, only on a couple of Pokemon. They're very, very strong and good in the meals that they're at. At game release, they were some of the strongest meals in the game. They're probably doing the same thing here with Gourgeist and pumpkins. Gourgeist just matches pumpkins, and I think it'd be interesting if we have more gimmick ingredients like this, but this definitely seems like a gimmick to me. Now, they could be releasing new meals with the new ingredient that theoretically comes to us with Amber Canyon, but likely with the Amber Canyon, they're going to be giving us a pot size increase, which then comes with new meals, which oftentimes comes with a new ingredient to be released at Amber Canyon, just a few days after this event is over. So, all in all, do I think these are going to be meta-breaking, meta-defining? I think they'll be as meta-defining as Tails have and are always going to be. Like, they're certainly good. It seems good, but Tails seemed good at launch. And the pumpkins have all the same stuff going for them, but I think they're going to be a flash in the pan. So while I think it could be a good thing to hunt for them, hunt for a good Pumpkaboo or good Gourgeist, as of right now, I think that expecting these pumpkins to be as impactful as they seem they're going to be is just as speculative as expecting them to die out is going to be. Because the speculation that they're not going to add new meals that could power creep these new ones, that feels almost more speculative than the idea that there's going to be new meals with the new island and a new ingredient as well. Just because that's the precedent they've set in the past, and it would feel not very exciting if they gave us a new island without a new meal. So I guess that's what I would say. If you evaluate the current meta, pumpkins is everything. Pumpkins, you should be hunting for this. It's great, especially for dessert weeks. But I think this is setting a precedent for where the game is going. And a precedent that this isn't going to be the meta for very long, and it's a flash-in-the-pan gimmick. Maybe I'll be eating my words in a couple weeks. Maybe the new meals will also incorporate pumpkins, as well as whatever is to be released with the Amber Canyon. But only time will tell that. And I'm not going to advise you either way during this event, because I don't want to advise off of speculation, and I think either way is speculating. But anyway, that is it for today's episode. If you have enjoyed the news and this update, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I always try to cover the news as fast as possible whenever there's something major in the community, so make sure you have those notifications turned on for whenever these sorts of things go live. If you want to join the Discord, you can come hang out, talk about all things Pokemon Sleep and the like with a cool community of people, then feel free to click the link in the description. And a huge, huge thank you to all my channel members. It really means a lot to me you guys want to show your support financially, despite there being no paid rewards for members. If you too want to become a channel member, then feel free to click that join button down below. And as always, I thank you all for watching and hope that you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.